A dark fantastic network presentation. Last scene. A mystery.
It wasn't working. Johnny had been lying down on the sofa for almost an hour now, trying to sleep. William had left ages ago. For a few minutes after he'd left, Johnny had just sat there, unable to move. He was a coward and he knew it. But William hadn't seen what he'd seen, hadn't felt the endless terror that man in black had struck in him. That man, that beastly man with the shining eyes. Johnny opened his eyes. They ached, felt dry. He blinked a few times, but the inside of his eyelids felt like sandpaper. Too much alcohol had dehydrated his whole system. Dry eyes, dry mouth, throbbing headache. They were old friends, always uninvited, but by now never unexpected. He forced himself to sit up. When his stocking feet touched the floor, instant pain in every inch of his foot. It was his nerves. They, too, had been poisoned. He looked around, searching for the water carafe he always placed nearby in case of emergencies. And there it was on the table near the window. Far, far away. He moaned. The doorbell rang. He moaned louder. It rang again. He pushed himself up, shuffled to the door. Who is it? It's me. It was Lara. He leaned against the door. She's all right. Thank God, he whispered to himself. Then he remembered what the man in black had said to him. And the fear came back, and the shame and the helplessness. What the hell was she doing here? And did she have to come now? He didn't want to see her. Not now. I'm sorry, Lara, but this isn't a good time, he said. I have to see you, Johnny. It's important. Damn, he said. He needed to think, but his brain refused to cooperate. Maybe if he had a drink. No, that would be the wrong thing to do. He turned around, looking for a mirror. But for the life of him, he couldn't remember where the nearest mirror was in this damn place. He brushed his hair with his fingers, cleared his throat, then opened the door. She looked lovely, as always. And when she saw what shape he was in, she lowered her eyes for a second, buying time to rein in her reaction. Then she looked up and gave him a wan smile. Can I come in? Sorry. Please do, he said, opening the door wider, making way. She hesitated for an instant, probably thinking that talking to him in his present condition would be a fruitless endeavor. But she quickly overcame her indecision and crossed the threshold. He took a deep breath, then closed the door. She surveyed the place, taking everything in. She had never been here before, at least he thought so. But nowadays he didn't trust his memory that much. Please sit down, he said, pointing to the sofa. Thanks, she said. She gently pushed his crumpled jacket aside, the one he usually used as a blanket, then she sat down. Can I get you anything? Some tea, perhaps? I was just going to make myself a cup, he said. No, thanks. But you go right ahead. All right, he said, walking to the little tea cart he'd brought back from London a few years ago. So, what's going on? He said as he poured some water from the carafe into the electric kettle. Do you know where Billy is? The cup slipped from his hand, but he caught it in midair, noisily placing it on the tea cart. I'm not sure, he said. She turned around. She looked like she didn't believe him, or maybe he was just being too suspicious. There's no time for this, Johnny. He startled, almost jumping in place. She came and stood before him. No time for tea? But I really need it. No time for dancing around. We're all in danger. He shook his head slowly, grappling with all this. He wished he were someplace else, anywhere else. But there was nowhere to hide. He was certain of that. I don't know what you want of me, Lara. Last night I told you everything I know. She moved closer to him, and he could smell her perfume, a light, pleasing fragrance that made him want to hold her close, forget the world for just a moment. I know you saw him. The man who took Michelle. He returned his attention to making tea. He turned the kettle on, then took his time selecting a tea bag from his considerable collection. Are you sure you don't want any tea? I have Earl Grey, breakfast, and my absolute favorite. Jasmine tea with orange blossoms. Johnny, she said sternly. The water started to boil, gently shaking the old tea cart. He took a deep breath. He wouldn't face her. I know you're scared, she said, then placed her hand on top of his. He came to me too. At the radio station, William stood still, his hands placed on the soundboard. In the background, turned low, an old history program coming from an ancient Galvin radio that William had bought years ago and which was now placed on the coffee table by the door of the studio. William needed to be here, one of the few places left in this world where he still felt the illusion of safety. The fear was still with him, massive and merciless. He had to get it under control. He'd faced it before, this elemental dread, this darkening of reality. His encounter with that stranger in black had brought it all back, with a vengeance. Then, 10 o'clock at night, William was 16 years old. He was standing in the most isolated spot he could find. A place in the woods that nobody knew about. A gentle wind cooling the sweat on the back of his neck. He needed to focus. Needed to savor these moments. He raised the revolver, feeling the weight of it in his hand. A pleasing sensation. Everything about the piece appealed to him. The shape of the barrel, the sound of the wheel as it clicked, clicked, clicked when he turned it, the coldness of the steel. He aimed at the cans he'd placed on the branches 15 feet away. He could barely see them, but that was all right. All he needed was the gleam of their tin. In the background, he could hear a robin sing its song. He cocked the hammer with the palm of his left hand, then slowly pressed the trigger like a gunfighter, just like his grandpa had taught him. Boom! A can flew away. He smiled, aimed again. Cocked the hammer, pressed the trigger. The pistol bucked, another can burst, flew apart. He felt it, the power growing inside him. That's what the revolver instilled in him. Power. The ability to shut everything out, to turn into something more than a boy. Something fearsome. A kind of machine. The sound of footsteps, leaves crunching underfoot. You think you're good, boy? From behind him, it was his grandpa. And just like that, all the pleasure, all the power drained out of William. He lowered the revolver. His grandpa was coming closer. William turned around, saw him shuffling towards him, his bad right leg giving him trouble. His gray hair was unkempt, and he was breathing heavily, but in his own way, he was a commanding presence. A man not to trifle with. And he was angry. Red angry, as his grandma used to say. You think I didn't know? You coming here, behind my back, pretending to be a hotshot gunslinger, just like in the movies, he said and laughed. A terrible, bitter sound. William knew he was in for a beating, maybe the beating of his life. He'd been stupid to think he could do this behind the old man's back. The old man knew everything that went on in these parts, these woods. And shooting the Ruger William was holding in his hand right now was one of the few things that the old man truly took any pleasure in, a pleasure he'd accidentally instilled in William as he watched his grandpa, year after year, come to the woods. And fire that revolver like some kind of magic wand, flames bursting from its pipe, power coming off of it, and the old man holding it in his hand in waves. The old man had noticed the boy's fascination and so had given him a few lessons, enough to whet his appetite. When he saw that William had some talent for shooting, he got mean and stopped taking the boy with him anymore. So William started sneaking away every few weeks, coming here, practicing. And lo and behold, he discovered that he was good, more than good, in fact. Everything about firing that pistol came naturally to him. But it was all over now. He was found out, and the old man would never let him touch the revolver again. Give it back, boy, the old man said. And William was about to do just that when he saw what the old man was holding in his right hand. The old leather belt with the rusty buckle, the one with that ugly fox on it. So this wouldn't just be a beating. It would be a whipping. William felt a poisonous terror spread inside him. Terror of the pain and screams and blood to come. And then he remembered what he held in his hand. And red-hot anger welled up in him, a raging sensation that he couldn't stop or resist. Give me back my piece, boy, the old man said, raising the belt, a smug smile on his hard face. Stop, William said, his voice so loud he startled himself. The old man stopped, sensing a change in the boy. You don't speak to me like that, punk. Never speak to me like that, he said, whipping down the belt, the buckle hitting the ground with an ugly smack. William flinched, raised the gun. The old man's eyes grew wide, then he recovered, hiding his fear, smiling again. But this time, William saw that the smile wasn't real. "You think you can shoot me?" "You," he said, taking a step towards the boy. William raised the pistol higher, cocked the hammer. The old man kept coming slowly. "Listen, now. Drop that pistol or you won't make it out of here in one piece. You've crossed a line and it's up to me to set you right. Stop. Don't come any closer. I'll shoot." "No, you won't," the old man said, inching closer, dragging his bad leg. "Drop that belt? Now, Grandpa, or I'll have to shoot," William said, his words coming fast, the sweat starting to get in his eyes. "That belt is the only thing that can set you right, son. Your pa never raised you right, but now he's gone. Your ma is gone, and it's up to me. It's up to me." He lunged. William pressed the trigger. The shot went wide. The old man pounced on him, grabbing for the gun. William jumped back, trying to get away. The old man caught William's left arm, twisted it back, till something cracked, gave way. William screamed, the pain knifing through him, drowning his senses. William dropped to his knees, the anger inside him building and building. He felt he was about to explode. The old man let him go, breathing heavily, a terrible smell coming from him now. The smell of sick sweat. He reached down to take the gun from William's hand, murder in his eyes. And William, lightning quick, turned around, reached for the hammer with his left hand, ignoring the electric pain coursing through his arm and shoulder. He pulled the trigger, the shot hitting the old man square in the chest, pushing him back into the past. As the robin's song faded away, and something came closer, closer, a ringing sound echoing in the night. William came out of his trance and saw that he was unconsciously rubbing his left shoulder. The phone was ringing. He picked it up. "Hello? Is this WKIT-12, the radio station?" the voice said. "Yes," William said, slowly realizing that the voice was familiar. The warm English accent, the elegant diction. "May I speak to Billy, Mr. William Last?" "Speaking." William waited. "William, dear boy, we need to talk. I think I can help you." And suddenly William knew who it was. "Help me? How?" "Help you find that missing girl. Before it's too late."
This has been Last Scene, a mystery.